Problem number 1 says, Mrs. Harper goes to her mailbox during first period. You've been dying to take your rolly chair for a spin down the ramp outside her room, and now is your chance. You push off with the force of 100 newtons to the right, so I'll draw my arrow, 100 newtons to the right. And it is force applied. I'm applying a force of 100 newtons to the right. As you roll down the ramp, friction with the floor is 35 newtons. So I'm going to draw my 35 newtons to the left for my force of friction, because that is what goes against the force applied. Force of gravity pulls down with the force of 10. And the normal force pushes back up against the force of gravity with the force of 10 newtons. Okay, so draw a free body diagram. We did that. It shows the forces acting on the example, and then circle the net force. So I have 100 newtons of force pushing to the right. I have 35 newtons of force pushing to the left. So what I have left over would be 65 newtons for my F net, and it's going to be going to the right. 10 newtons of normal force and 10 newtons of gravity cancel each other out, so my net force is 65 newtons to the right. Okay, problem 3 says, an SUV is moving east with a force of 250 newtons. So I will draw that. My arrow to the right will be east. 250 newtons force applied. And the car is moving west with a force of 175. So now I'm going to the west, force of 175 newtons, force applied. Force of gravity is 10 newtons, so pulling down my force of gravity, 10 newtons. And the normal force is pushing up with the force of 10. Force normal, 10 newtons. Two vehicles collide, so they hit each other on a wet road, and the force of friction is 50 newtons. So I take away 50. I'm gonna draw the arrows for the car going west in red. So I have 175 newtons of force going west. I have 50 newtons of friction pushing back against that. So that's 50 newtons force of friction against the car that's going west. My SUV I will draw in blue. I have 250 newtons of force for the SUV going east, and there's also 50 newtons of friction going against. So I have to take 175 newtons minus 50 for friction, and that leaves me 125 newtons for the car. I take 250 and I subtract the 50 newtons of friction from the SUV, so I get 200 newtons. And then what I would have left over would be a 75 newton force going in the direction of the SUV, which would be east, for my F net.